Good afternoon, Professor Mathenjwa.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice and Commissioners.
How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you, Chief Justice.
All right. I apologize on behalf of everybody that we have kept you waiting for much longer than you should have. But you are here now and we'll give you an opportunity to impress us. I'm going to ask you some questions, and then the acting judge president will ask you questions, and then the MEC who represents the premier will also ask you questions, and then commissioners who have questions for you will ask you questions as well. But we thank you for availing yourself for consideration for appointment as a judge of the KZN Division of the High Court. In terms of your qualifications, I see that you have a B.Juris degree, which you got from the University of Fort Hare in 1991, and you have an LLB degree, which you got from the University of Wits in 1996, and you have an LLM degree, which you got from UNISA in 2007, and you have an LLD, which you got from UNISA in 2014.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
And you are a professor at UNISA.
I was a professor, Chief Justice. Yes, I'm still a professor, but I'm no longer attached at UNISA. I took early retirement last year, Chief Justice.
Oh, you don't look like somebody who should be going to retirement.
No, Chief Justice, it's because I wanted to take full-time practice. Now I'm practicing full-time as an advocate in Bishop Chambers, Johannesburg.
Oh, well, I see that you did your articles of clerkship with Cox and Partners attorneys in Vryheid.
Correct, Chief Justice.
From 1996 to 1998.
Correct, Chief Justice.
But prior to that, you had worked as a constable in the South African Railways Police Force in Mpangeni.
Correct, Chief Justice.
In 1982 to 1985. From 1982 April to December 1985.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
And then you were promoted to the position of sergeant in the same force, Vryheid, from 1986 January to December 1986.
Correct, Chief Justice.
Oh no, I see you went up to 1988. And you were admitted as an attorney in 1998?
Correct, Chief Justice.
And for how long did you practice as an attorney?
I practiced as an attorney for 4.5 years, Chief Justice.
Yes. Was that all for your own account or with somebody else?
I first practiced as a professional assistant with Botha's Incorporated, and thereafter I practiced on my own account at Mpangeni, Chief Justice.
Yes. And then you were employed as the head of the Department of Safety and Community Liaison in the KZN provincial government. Correct, from 2002 July to June 2004. Is that right?
That's correct, Chief Justice.
Later on, you worked for the Mandeni municipality as a municipal manager. Correct, from July 2004 to July 2006.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
Then in 2010, you started lecturing at Northwest University as a senior lecturer.
That's correct.
And in 2011, you went to UNISA as a senior lecturer. In 2016, they made you associate professor. And in 2018, they made you full professor, and you were full professor at UNISA up to March 2021.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
And I see that thereafter, it reflects that you are self-employed as an advocate of the High Court with effect from 1 April 2021 to the present.
That's correct, Chief Justice.
But it doesn't say when you were admitted. When were you admitted as an advocate?
I was admitted in 2019, Chief Justice.
In 2019?
Yes.
Or, was that after doing pupillage or not?
Chief Justice, I was admitted while I was doing pupillage at the Pretoria Bar.
Oh, so you did your pupillage at the Pretoria Bar?
That's correct, Chief Justice.
Okay, which year was that?
I took research and development leave and did pupillage in 2019, Chief Justice.
So the pupillage you did in 2019?
Yes, Chief Justice.
Oh, okay, and then you started. So after pupillage, you only started practicing in 2021?
Chief Justice, after my pupillage, I went back to the university. I served 1 year, and then I practiced as an associate of the Pretoria Bar in 2020. Then in 2021, I started practicing as a full member of Johannesburg Bar.
So your practical experience consists of the time you were doing articles. Maybe we shouldn't even count that. After admission consists of 4 years, because I think you said you practiced for 4 years or 4.5 years, I'm not sure.
4.5 years.
4.5 years,
Yes.
plus the time from April 2021.
Yes, Chief Justice.
So your practical experience is 4.5 years plus 1 year. So it's about 5.5 years.
Yes, Chief Justice.
That's the sum total of your practical experience.
My practical experience, that's correct, Chief Justice.
Yes. Okay. And have you acted in the High Court?
Yes, Chief Justice, I've acted for 15 weeks in civil court and 10 weeks in criminal court.
Yes. And so I guess with the limited practical experience that you have had as a practitioner, there would not be any reported cases in which you appeared. Is that correct?
It's correct, Chief Justice.
And with regard to that period, did you do trials, civil trials, criminal trials as an attorney and as an advocate?
Yes, Chief Justice. While I was an attorney, mostly my work was a criminal trial, but I've also done a civil trial.
I guess when you say most was criminal trial,
Yes.
it must mean that there was limited civil trials.
The huge
Civil
bulk
trial
of it, yes, is correct, Chief Justice.
Yes. And since April 2021, how many civil trials have you done as an advocate?
Well, Chief Justice, as an advocate, most of my work, it's a legal opinion.
Yes.
Because of my expertise, I give a lot of legal opinion.
Yes, okay. So you haven't done any civil trials or criminal trials since April, after you started your practice in April 2021?
Occasional motion court, Chief Justice.
Okay, so with motion court, it's even occasional, even with motion court.
Occasional, because I started last year, Chief Justice.
Yes. And, but why would you think that with this limited practical exposure that you have had, would you think that you are ready to be considered for appointment as a judge?
It's because, Chief Justice, in the new democratic dispensation, the pool from where judges are taken from is a blended pool, that of academics and attorneys and advocate. So my submission is that my experience as an academic, senior academic, combined with that limited experience as an attorney and an advocate should count to my favor.
But when you are a judge, you deal with practical cases, and it's important for this body that if it recommends or advises the president to appoint somebody as a judge, particularly at high court level, that this body should be confident that know what to do to run trials, do motion courts, and so on. That doesn't mean that if you have an academic background, you can't be considered. But it might depend how much acting you have had, because that helps. Particularly competing against some of the candidates who might have a lot of experience with what a judge does. So one does not necessarily talk about exclusion, but it's just that when you are competing against people who have a lot of experience, it might not be easy. Not that it can't be done, it might not be easy. Indeed, there are academics that this body has recommended be appointed, but as far as I know, at least in the High Court, those were candidates where this body was or I guess maybe you say the weeks that you are talking about of acting are sufficient.
Chief Justice, I will say that without dictating to the Commission, Chief Justice, but the experience that one gets as a senior academic of and applying the law, it's just the same, actually, because even when you are a judge, you have to interpret and apply the law. So with regard to the exposure, Chief Justice, I'll say that will be a relative term, because what might be 60 weeks to another person will be sufficient for 20 weeks to another person.
Yes, okay. So how many written judgments have you produced as an acting judge?
I've written 23.
23 judgments. Yes. Okay. And what branches of law do they relate to?
They relate to commercial law, like passing off, delict, like medical negligence, Rule 43, contract, divorce, agent applications, interdict. So far, contract, Chief Justice.
Yes. Have you sat in motion court during your acting stint?
Yes, Justice. Every Thursday I was in motion court. Therefore, the 15 weeks that I acted, then I'll have been in motion court for 15 days.
Yeah. And civil trials and criminal trials you have done?
I've done civil trial, criminal trial.
About how many civil trials and how many criminal trials? More or less.
Chief Justice, the 23 that I spoke about was civil trial. So with regard to criminal trial, I happen to be allocated a very long criminal trial, which took the whole 10 weeks, the whole term.
Yeah, so how many civil trials, is that to say one civil trial, or what is that to say? I just want to have an idea how many civil trials you have done, how many criminal trials.
Civil trials, Chief Justice, if I remember very well, they could be 6.
6?
Yeah.
And criminal trials?
Criminal trial, I've been involved in that one long criminal trial.
One long criminal trial?
Yes.
Okay. What is your understanding of the rule of law?
The rule of law, Chief Justice, firstly entails that whoever exercises public power must be authorized to exercise such power. Secondly, it entails that the exercise of public power should be within the limit of that authority. Thirdly, it entails that all people are equal before the law, regardless of their status.
Yes, and the doctrine of separation of powers?
Chief Justice, the doctrine of separation of powers addresses the issue of concentration of power to one body or one institution, which then may lead to abuse of that power. Therefore, the doctrine of separation of power have 4 components. Firstly, is the separation of the 3 branches of government. Then secondly, is the separation of functions within the 3 branches of government. Thirdly, is the separation of the personnel itself. And the 4th element is the check and balances, which then enables each branch of government to check the other branch of government. But basically, the basic meaning is that each branch of government should not intrude on the terrain of another branch of government. But that is qualified by the 4th requirement of check and balances, like what I'm doing here today. The legislature and the executive are doing the check and balances on the appointment of a judge.
Mm-hmm. And the independence of the judiciary?
The independence of the judiciary, Chief Justice, entails 2 elements. Firstly, it will be institutional independence, that the judiciary should be independent from the other spheres of government. Second part will be the personal independence of a judge. Then the personal independence of a judge will then require a judge, when presiding over cases, not to be influenced by his political commitment or religious views.
Yes, thank you. I will now give the Acting Judge President the opportunity to put questions to the candidate.
Professor Mathenjwa.
Good afternoon, Acting Judge President.
Yes. So just put few questions to you. Abt is of the view that we have not demonstrated the activities.
Please raise your voice or speak up, AJP, please, so that we can hear.
Abt is of the view that we have not demonstrated the abilities and experience of a High Court judge. Do you have anything to say in this regard?
Yes, Chief Justice. Firstly, when they made this comment, it was based on my limited experience of 15 months, but thereafter, 15 weeks, but thereafter I was then afforded that 10 weeks more. On the issue of displaying that experience, Acting Judge President, it will be, in my view, it will be more adequate for me to respond if they were able to specify, to be specific, either from my cases or from any day where I display that kind of inexperience.
Okay, it further suggests that you require to develop further experience in the High Court.
Yes, Acting Judge President, that view speaks to the explanation that I've already given, that the new dispensation created that blended system of drawing judges from academics. Definitely because of my situation as an academic, I will have limited court experience as compared to advocates and attorneys who are practicing full-time.
So in the light of limited court experience, don't you think that you need further exposure?
Chief Justice, that is in the Acting Judge President, that is in the hands of the Commission, but in my view, I have displayed the potential because, just to mention, for instance, in this last quarter, I have to deal with 12 appeal from the Magistrates' Court. And out of these 12 appeals, I delivered 4 judgments extempore, like senior judges. And even the bail appeal that I received, I delivered it extempore. So the pace and that I've displayed shows that, in my view, I'm ready. And if not ready, of course, I cannot be 100% ready, but I have the potential.
So on the other hand, GCP states that you align yourself with fairness and social justice in the administration of justice.
Sorry?
The GCB
Yes.
states that you align yourself with fairness and social justice in the administration of justice, and it also goes on to state that your appointment will strengthen the High Court with both your breadth of legal knowledge and experience and your academic background. Do you have anything to say in this regard?
I appreciate that comment, Chief Justice. Acting Judge President.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you. MEC?
No questions, Chief. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh?
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good evening, Professor Mathenjwa.
Good evening.
I must first make a declaration, Honorable Chief Justice and colleagues, and one has to look at paginated 9, Commissioner Boloy, question 8, to find that answer of the association between Professor Mathenjwa and myself. I haven't seen him in a number of years. Now, I've known him to be an activist in the community and an expert in local government. But I'd just like to ask you, Professor, what motivated you recently to leave academia and and join the bar?
I think I've done well in academia. I've achieved the upper echelon in academia, and I have now felt that I should be involved in practice. I like practice.
And how is the practice going in the short term?
Well, in the short term, Commissioner, because of this COVID, things will not have run the way I would have liked them to go. But I'm getting there.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Commissioner Nochesi.
Thank you, CJ. Professor Mathenjwa, I just read from the LSA, the Law Society of South Africa. They say the LSSA believes that his wide range of experience would be beneficial to the judiciary and support his application for appointment to the bench. Now, my point here is, I recall Judge Hlophe, one of the best judges in the country, moved straight from the University of Transkei and become a judge. How beneficial it is to have somebody with your background as an academic who joins the bench in terms of capacity of research and and scholarly judgment that my professor here would like to insist on.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think it's very beneficial because I will say right now what I've displayed in that court, no one can say I've come to ask. I'm able to run on my own. Why? Because I'm able to do research. Whenever I find problem or challenge, I always have my laptop. Then I'll go to my laptop, look at that particular topic, and then I get the answer. So I think it's very beneficial not that I'm promoting academics, but it's very beneficial because then they are able also to conduct research. And for me, in my view, is also coupled with that little experience as an attorney and also as an advocate.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you. Commissioner Nyambi.
I'm fine, CJ.
Oh, okay. Why did I think you raised your hand? Okay. Commissioner Totovu.
Thank you, CJ. Good evening, Prof.
Good evening, Commissioner.
As an academic, you teach at undergraduate or postgraduate level?
Commissioner, I teach in both. Because,
In both?
Yes.
Okay. The caliber of students that you teach, do they include advocates, prosecutors, and judges? Because I see most of them lately are studying.
For now, especially with regard to supervision without and director generals and everyone.
Thank you very much, CJ.
Thank you. I didn't see any other hand. Or Commissioner Moimang. And yeah.
Thank you.
After that, I'll go to the ones attending virtually.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good evening, Prof. Good question from my side. What is your understanding of the normative constitutional theory in relation to the assessment of the judicial behavior, but taking into account the liberal legalist and also the critical legal theorist. I'm raising this taking from your LLM thesis. Thank you.
My apology, Commissioner. From my LLM thesis, I did not deal with that. My LLM was on a fundamental right, and my doctoral was on multi-level governance. So I do not have that in my LLM thesis.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Maybe what we could do, just pay visit to a book by Rooks in his assessment of the first 10 years of the work of the Constitutional Court.
No, I haven't looked at that.
Thank you. Pay visit to it. Thank you.
Thank
Chief
you.
Justice.
Where is that voice? Oh, you are done. Okay, thank you.
I'm done, Chief Justice. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. Commissioners attending virtually, is there anyone who has a question for the candidate?
I have no questions. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Breitenbach.
No questions from my side, Jane.
Thank you, Commissioner Shabangu Mdawe.
Chief Justice, I have a question or two.
Okay, all right. One.
Chief Justice.
Only one.
All right. The case on customary marriages, the Mshengu versus Mshengu and others. In that case, the heading says that the first respondent is Estate Late Mshengu and others, which is something I'm not sure I understand who exactly that first respondent is. But that's in passing by. I just want to make sure that on the enforceability of this order, where it refers to the applicant is entitled to, perhaps if you can just indicate, is the applicant entitled to anything in terms of this order? And is it enforceable? I think I'll leave the question at that then. You can perhaps just comment on that in the context of customary marriages. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. The position with this case is that the applicant's view was that she was entitled to the half share of the estate. So because there was no evidence then led as to, because if you follow the case very well, I indicated that in terms of the new customary law that came into effect on the 1st of June 2001, that system created a different proprietary system. Firstly, that if the couples were married, then they will share, the husband and wife will share from the property in that wife household. And there will be a property that does not belong to any the spouse. If, because there was no evidence that there was property, I said if it's any property that does not belong to any of the household, then each party because there were three, is entitled to 1/3 of that property. If there was any property that belonged to the deceased household, each party then will have to share half of that. That was the essence of the judgment, based on the interpretation of the customary law that came into effect on the 1st of June 2021.
Well, I'm limited to one question, so I can't go on further than that. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Been nice to you. Just one more, and that's it.
Well, it just seems to me that you're applying the law to no fact. I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding the order, Professor.
But Commissioner, there are facts. The facts are that, one, the applicant was married to the deceased. All what they wanted to know is what share do they have, and that's it. And then I gave judgment according to their request that your share is 1/3 of this, and your share is half of that.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you. I think we have come to the end of this interview. Thank you very much, Professor Mathenjwa. Thank you for availing yourself for consideration for appointment as a judge of the KZN Division of the High Court. I will give you now 3 minutes to emphasize 2 or 3 points that you would like the commissioners to bear in mind when they consider your candidature. But if you are happy that all issues have been adequately dealt with, that will also be fine.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Mine is to thank the Chief Justice and the Commissioner for enabling me to express myself before this commission. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. You are now excused.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you.